What's up guys, this is Scoopman5000 and today we are back for another action figure review. Today we're taking a look at the Masters of the Universe Origins Skeletor. And this is yet another big franchise making its debut on the channel here, and we got Masters of the Universe of course, and if you guys know, they've already been making WWE Masters of the Universe, and I've collected everything so far up until Wave 3. And now, finally, I did find a Skeletor in Walmart. Unfortunately, the only character I've been able to find. I think Skeletor is like way abundant in this wave, and then everybody else has been pretty hard to find. And you know, I don't know if I want to pay 30-40 bucks for these guys, so I think I'll just wait. I think they're getting more of a general release next year outside of Walmart. But for now, I'm happy to find Skeletor. He's definitely my favorite from Masters of the Universe. And this video might be a little quicker due to the simplicity of the figure, but nonetheless, I was super stoked to find him, and I did want to take a look on the channel here. So what we get for the packaging is some classic Masters of the Universe blister card style. It's pretty identical to the original figures, but we do get new for 20 up top, and then modern posing for retro play. But other than that, you know, you're getting a pretty close recreation of those original blister cards, and the same can be said for the figures. Kind of the whole thing with the Masters of the Universe Origins is bringing back the original characters, the original designs, and just adding in a bit of modern articulation. And if Skeletor is anything like those WWE Masters of the Universe, I know I'm in for a good figure. Flipping Skeletor on over to the back, we get an awesome piece of artwork up top, and now I have no clue if this matches the original figure's artwork, but nonetheless, this artwork up top here is why I love Skeletor, because that shit looks badass. That's something I'd want to get as like a poster or something. But we see his short little read-up says that the nefarious overlord Skeletor wants to control the power within Castle Grayskull, and then below that we get modernizing and celebrating the original 80s Master of the Universe action figures. Master of the Universe Origins gives you the power to pose Eternia's greatest warriors as retro-styled figures or in new action-packed battle position. And then with that we get some graphics showing how you apply the accessories, and then also kind of showing off the points of articulation. And then we get the other characters in the wave, that being He-Man, Teela, Man-at-Arms, Evil-Lyn, and Beastman. And I think Evil-Lyn is on Walmart.com, but I don't want to order her on her own because Walmart shipping can be expensive. Other than that, we get the barcode at the bottom for any of you hunting, and then some legal information. And that about covers base for the Skeletor packaging. I almost bought two of these because I wanted to keep them on card, but I figured, hey, leave one for the next collector. I haven't left any of the WWE figures on card, so I'm not going to start now with the He-Man. So that being said, let's get to it and pry open Skeletor. And to start out of the packaging, we do get a nice mini comic, and this is very reminiscent of those original Masters of the Universe figures. You see the figures in the wave on the back. And while I said it is reminiscent, the artwork is completely different. It's much more modern looking artwork for the mini comic, but it does feature, I think, most, if not all, of the characters in the wave. But nonetheless, it's a nice little throw-in, and we are getting the same thing in the WWE figures. Here's the Undertaker's, but for him it's only a one-page comic, but I think they're unique to every character. And then for accessories, we start out with Skeletor's half of the power sword, so it's obviously done up in the purple like the vintage toy. And then when you go ahead and pick up a He-Man figure, that's going to come with the pegs on the silver sword that are going to insert and create a full power sword. But that being said, this does work on its own as an accessory for Skeletor, and considering I have no He-Man figures and none of the WWE figures have come with a power sword, this is all I got for now. And then his other accessory, the iconic staff for Skeletor. It's got that ram skull up top, and that's what I love about Skeletor, because he was metal before it was cool. You know, this dude's got a skull for a face, walks around, and he's got this ram skull on his staff, spitting out magic and shit like that. That's about as metal as you could get. And I don't have the originals or really a reference for that to even say if this is close to the original, but based on the rest of the figure, I'd say this does stick pretty close to that. And then that leaves us with Skeletor. And if you look at some of the other figures in the wave, like He-Man, who has an updated face sculpt, and even Man-at-Arms, who has a mustache added to him to kind of represent the cartoon more, this Skeletor almost completely sticks to that original toy's design, especially when you stick to the face. And then also at the boots, I noticed that it's very reminiscent of the original toy. And for me, I actually do prefer the Filmation style, and actually, I've been meaning to pick up that Filmation styled Super 7 retro figure, because it's kind of in this style, in this pose, but it's done with that Filmation head sculpt and overall aesthetic, which I do prefer to this Skeletor. That being said, this is still a great looking figure, and the colors on this entire Masters of the Universe wave, from what I've seen so far, are amazing. They completely pop, and even the video probably isn't doing it justice how bright and colorful this guy is. There was actually 3 Skeletors on the pegs when I found them at Walmart, and I noticed the other 2 had like brown staining in the middle of the legs there, so I did pick out the best one. But other than that, you know what you get right here, if you don't even want to pose them, is a very similar look to the original He-Man. And with that out of the way, we'll go ahead and get our hands on the figure. We'll start up at the head sculpt, and this is almost a one-for-one recreation of the original Skeletor's head sculpt. He originally had like the green with the yellow insides, and then the red eyes, and kind of strangely painted on teeth. Kind of looks like lip paint or something like that. You know, this almost looks like he's wearing a mask or he has face paint on, whereas, you know, the Filmation style of Skeletor and even the 2000X and all that, that's a dude with a skull for a head. But you got to respect the original design for Skeletor, and it is a great look. I'm not complaining about that. I know that this series isn't really doing swappable heads, but either a Filmation styled head or even a Keldor, you know, like pre-Skeletor head would have been pretty cool. But it does seem like this line is doing very well and it's selling out and it's getting scalped to fucking all hell. So with that, I hope that this line continues and we get a whole selection of Masters of the Universe figures, including some variants for guys like Skeletor and He-Man, getting some different looks. We can pull from Filmation, we can pull from 2000X, and the sky really is the limit with Masters of the Universe, some of the most fun and iconic toys ever made. And for me, it's something I always wanted to get into, but it's always been very intimidating, because you either go with the retro stuff, or you go with Masters of the Universe Classic, and both of those could get very expensive very quickly. But hopefully as time goes on, these Origins figures do become more readily available, and we'll be able to build out a huge Masters of the Universe collection. So again, a very vintage inspired, or I really should say, you know, recreation of that vintage figure on the head sculpt. And then as we move down, we do get the armor, and the interesting part of these figures is that they come apart pretty easily, so you can take off his torso there, you can take the head off, and then the shoulder armor kind of would detach that way. You do get a little button back here so you can unplug it, and that opens up a lot of possibility for customization. But you could go ahead and bring in, you know, your WWE Masters of the Universe, or as the collection grows, obviously, I'll get more He-Man. But you see, you know, the head sculpt comes right off, and these parts are all going to be swappable. And honestly, for now, while we don't have a Keldor head sculpt, this could definitely work. If you painted this up in the same color, this could work pretty closely for that Keldor, if you want it to have that look, and you're not patient enough to wait. But back to the base Skeletor, obviously without that shoulder armor, he's just a blue body underneath. And since the beginning, He-Man figures have been rampant with reuse of parts. So for the most part, you know, torso down, not the boots obviously, but the torso, the crotch piece, and the legs are all going to be the exact same as He-Man and most of the other male characters. He's got another removable piece in this loincloth belt right here, and that kind of has a belt strap in the back. Underneath you get the black crotch piece, and you see it even has the same sculpt as He-Man's, but they just kind of hide it with this loincloth. And the same can go for the rest of his body sculpt. When we get down to the boots, that's where it's unique to Skeletor, almost like webbed, like reptilian feet on the bottom, and then a fur texture to the boots on top. So honestly, a very fun package with Skeletor. Couldn't be more excited to have the beginning of a He-Man collection, and for right now he's gonna go good with my WWE Masters of the Universe. But before we get to comparing him with those, let's get into articulation. And the articulation on these guys is gonna be the same for every figure you get, except for maybe the female figures, but they're going to have a similar scheme anyway. So starting at the head, we could take it off even and reveal what's underneath there. So it's a neck peg with a ball joint at the bottom of the neck and then one at the base of the head as well. So with that, he's looking up pretty impressive. Down not so much, but he's getting a whole range of motion, tilting, and overall, that's way better than your original He-Mans with their swivel heads. We get nothing in the middle of the torso. At the shoulders, we get a swivel and a hinge, which is new for He-Man figures. We get no bicep cut, but we do get an elbow joint, which goes about 90. The wrists are on swivels and hinges as well. The torso does have a rotation, which is reminiscent of the classic figures. And then the legs on original He-Man figures had similar articulation, but this is going to be a lot more sturdy because there's no strings or nothing inside. It's just on ball joints, and you can see how it works on the bottom there. But you can see the leg kicks out. The sculpt blocks it from going back, and it does kick forward a little bit. He's got a 90-degree single jointed knee, and then the foot hinges back that much, forward that much, and it's on a pretty good ankle rocker as well. And that about covers Skeletor, so let's get to my favorite part and do some comparisons. And here's Skeletor with some classic 80s villains, and you can see that even standing mostly straight up, Skeletor is going to run short of that. He's in the 5.5-inch scale, Barbarian style, while the obvious Black Series and G.I. Joe are in that 6-inch scale. For some more traditional Barbarian-styled figures, I don't have any real He-Man ones to compare to, but I do have the Funko Savage World Jason, as well as the Major Wrestling Figure Podcast Remco-inspired Brian Myers. And you can see how the articulation works on these older figures. The head is on a swivel, same for the shoulders, and then the legs as well. and then you do get a waist cut. But other than that, it's pretty simple, and they're always stuck in these squatty poses, and that's the big draw with Masters of the Universe Origins. And then bringing in those WWE Masters figures, these have been going for about a year now, and they were kind of our introduction to this new articulation scheme for He-Man figures, and you can see they share pretty much the same parts. John Cena's torso especially, you could tell, but John Cena here would take the place of He-Man, and then we have Macho Man at arms. And what you see here is going to be the exact same parts when it comes to the arms and the torso, the harness, even the shield are going to be the exact same pieces you're getting with the Master of the Universe Origins, and the same can be said for Macho Man at arms with that torso and his weapon, and even the boots I think are the same. And then bringing in some WWE bad guys, we got the Scareglow Undertaker, who's probably the most badass Masters of the Universe figure we've gotten so far. And then we have the Skull King Triple H, who's obviously taken the place of Skeletor, and I even think they went with the purple trunks to kind of emulate Skeletor's look. And overall, that's going to do it for your look at the MOTU Origins Skeletor. And Skeletor is definitely my favorite from Masters of the Universe. So if I was only going to find one figure in the wild, I'm glad it was him. And I think that should be it in terms of unique franchises on the channel for a bit. We've got wrestling, we've got Marvel, DC, Ninja Turtles, UFC, AEW, everything in between. And now we've added He-Man into that mix. But like I said, hopefully I don't find any more things to spend money on. But if you couldn't tell already, I'm super stoked to have Skeletor in the collection, and I can't wait to find more Masters of the Universe Origins figures. I want to know what you guys think of this line. Are you interested in He-Man at all? And if so, are you going to try to hunt these figures down? Or are you going to stick with your classics and your vintage figures? I recently made an Instagram, scoopman_5000 if you want to check that out. Otherwise, I'm going to leave it off with the usual figure photography. And until next time, I'll see you guys in the next action figure review.